What do insanely poor people buy that ordinary people know nothing about? Powdered milk. I once worked in a call center and an old lady called almost in tears that cable went up by $1.50. Her line that she repeated more than once was that she couldn't afford fresh milk and had to buy powdered milk, unless it's due to a lack of refrigeration available or some sort of allergy. Only the very poor would buy powdered over fresh milk. We drank powdered milk growing up. It was terrible. Sometimes my mom would mix a bit of cream and to make it taste better. It didn't work. Ugh. Thanks for bringing up this painful memory. I knew a guy that would go to a livestock feed store and buy antibiotics and some other meds there that were meant for farm animals when he got sick. There was another med he'd get at pet stores too. He'd just cut the pills into smaller pieces to try to guess what the proper mg amount was. It's apparently crazy cheap for certain meds and doesn't require a prescription or govt oversight like it would at a normal pharmacy. My parents would just get cheap antibiotics over the border in Mexico. That and roach poison and some other stuff like that we probably don't carry in the US. For a good reason. Growing up was interesting regarding money. My mom was a hoarder and I lived in a house with trash including animal waste everywhere with no heat or running hot water. I used to take jugs of water and put them on my front porch to warm up enough to bath with. The house was failing apart and the tub was actually sinking into the ground so we wouldn't use it, so I made a hole in the corner of my basement floor so it would drain. The worst was winter. The water never got warm because of the cold and my hair would be frozen since there was no heat. It took me a long time to figure out this wasn't normal. What made everything worse was she was abusive and made us poor with her spending. She made about $1,000 a week or more and would give it to charity so others saw her in a positive light. They didn't know about the house. Once she even won the lottery and got $82,000 and gave it all away. All I asked was for a trailer so we had someplace to get warm or shower, but she saw nothing wrong with our life. There would also be days she gave our food money away and I wouldn't be able to eat if there was no school. My mother is a bee and we have no contact anymore. On the awesome side, I have 4 kids and a 3-level house with 4 bathrooms. Guess who showers all the time with hot water now? About a year ago, I was addicted to alcohol, 4,000 kilometers from home, dropped out of school and living in my 20-year-old car. I got so used to eating microwaved potatoes that I considered walking into a 7/11 and pocketing a handful of mayo packets while pretending to buy a hot dog, a special treat. I grew up distinctly middle class and generally did not want for much. My recent experience has really put into perspective the difficulties experienced by people who are or have been in similar situations to myself, but bear the burden of direct responsibility to kids and family. Things have gotten a lot better since I've accepted the help of other people. Seriously, even relatively tiny gestures of kindness will go a long way with someone who is literally struggling for survival. Never underestimate the impact you can have upon another person's life. I'd probably be dead by now if it weren't for the unconditional love and support of friends, family, and random strangers. Instead, I'm 25, relatively healthy again, and back in school trying to finish off my engineering degree. If you've taken the time to read this, then thank you. It means a lot. Oh god. Bags of frozen veggies and a couple packs of ramen can make a family meal. I used to buy these awful frozen chicken discs wrapped in bacon. They were terrible, filled with gristle and just nasty. Eating those with rice and frozen corn was a real treat. I ate Kraft dinner, mac and cheese, every day for about 2-3 years because that was all I could cook while my mom worked. I could have made SpaghettiOs, but I hated those. That for dinner, and one of those cheap 99-cent pack donuts from the grocery store for breakfast. Lunch was bologna sandwich and an apple. Finally, when I was about 10 or 11, I started teaching myself how to cook from my mom's old cookbooks, so my meals got a lot better. All carbs, and cheap fats, scalloped potatoes, rice and cheap meats. My local bus service used to have paper transfers, so you'd pay your fare, get the paper transfer that was good for an hour, and then you'd use it for the next bus. But if you were only going to the station, you'd get a paper transfer anyway, then hang around the station for an extra 5 minutes to see if anyone needed it. Conversely, you'd wait around for people getting off the bus, to see if you could score someone's transfer. This only worked if you weren't switching buses, but I got quite a few free rides this way and gave many a transfer away. Going without meds, living in constant pain because you can't afford a prescription. I remember laying in my bed at night and my mom would be sobbing in her bed from pain because she couldn't afford the meds that would treat her rheumatoid arthritis or anything but generic Tylenol for her pain. I guess that's not really buying anything, but while we're down memory lane, saving your birthday money from your grandma and aunts and uncles so you can pay for a babysitting course that lets you babysit at 12, getting a babysitting job at 12, and babysitting every day from 3 until 7 or 8 to earn some money, giving that money to your dad so he can pay his phone bill and put gas in his car, getting a real job at 14, working at a fast food joint so you got to eat dirt cheap, still giving your dad money, but this time knowing it is going to the casino with a bar, but still doing it anyway. Being poor was awful. 0/10 do not recommend. I think it's absolutely amazing that you worked so much at such a young age to help your family. You should be really proud of that. In university I used to buy 10-20 pounds bags of potatoes, freeze-dried chives, and gravy mix in bulk. Not the supermarket packs which are $1 for 2 cups of gravy, restaurant-sized packs that make 8 liters. That was often dinner, usually at the end of the month when money got tight. Sometimes I had even saved enough that I could have mashed potatoes made with some sort of dairy or bacon grease. I also had a cheap tub of protein powder for weightlifters. It was gross, but I would blend it up, usually with water, hold my nose and gulp it down. It was actual protein, and slightly more healthy than a week-long diet of potatoes. From what I've read, potatoes are the one solid food that a person can get all their nutritional requirements from. They may not be happy with that 89th consecutive meal of potatoes at the end of the month, but they won't be malnourished. Rotten bananas, stale bread, grey meat, and anything else the grocery is about to toss in the garbage. Giant bags of rice, beans, grain, or flour, canned vegetables, dried milk. I feel like few rich people even know about the grocery store bakery clearance section. You can get new car parts from the junkyard for virtually nothing, with added discounts if you remove them from the junkers yourself. I had a 12-year-old car in college and when it blew a tire, I went to the junkyard and found a decent set of tires. Bought all four for $70, which reduced my food budget to $16 for the next 2 weeks. Some lady in the grocery store saw me with a calculator trying to figure out how much ramen I could buy with $16 and handed me a $20. It made me cry. I'm glad I'm not poor anymore. But I'll always remember that lady. And for those of you talking about how much ramen $16 can buy, let the record show I was probably buying other necessities like tampons or flour or something. It's amazing how much $20 is worth when you don't have $20. My father and sister and I would spend all Sunday picking up cans to be recycled at the lake. So while all the other families were enjoying their cookout, we would scavenge through garbage cans. We did this because our father would take us to McDonald's afterwards. So after a whole day we would trade the aluminum in for a few bucks. My father would order a Big Mac, back when it was $1, and a small coffee. My sister and I would share the burger, she getting the part with 2 pieces of bun because she was older and I ate the solo. My father sat there and had multiple refills on his coffee. We spent many Sundays like that. I don't have an answer to your question, OP, but I no longer feel that I am having serious money problems after reading some of the comments you have generated through this post. In fact, I feel like a lot of Reddit would hate me after hearing what I thought my problems were. It really is very humbling to see all of this. Your problems are still problems, regardless of someone else's circumstances. Back when my dad had just left us, he's not a deadbeat or anything. They just separated. My mom and I fell on harder times than usual. We went from a house with 5 kids and 2 parents to a tiny duplex for just her and I. I remember we would go to the Dollar Tree and every now and then I'd be able to get a toy. Do you guys remember the little for boy and for girl bags they had? It was like 5 toys for the price of 1. That was like winning the lottery, man. I was so happy with those things and my mom would get them for me just to see me smile. However, soon after we sort of pulled out of the worst bit, but we had a few little dips here and there. Food was never an issue, but we had cable turned off sometimes and things like that. I remember one day my mom came home and said she had a surprise for me. My child self had the audacity to ask, "Is it from the Dollar Tree?" with a condescending tone. To this day I have no clue why I asked that, because I felt immediately crappy once her face had that look of embarrassment. I am 18 now and was about 12 then. I've since said sorry and she had no clue why I cried saying it. People, take what your parents give you and thank them for every little gift. They love it and they might not have the money, but they're sure as heck going to find a way to give you the world the best way that they can. Oh man, I actually teared up reading that, imagining your mum's face falling and the guilt you must have felt as soon as you finished saying it. There's some hard stuff to read in here, but that really got me. Having worked in a dollar store. 1. Dollar store steaks. Seriously, steaks for $1? If that doesn't sound sketchy, I don't know what does. 2. This is also a Hispanic thing I noticed. Fabuloso. That stuff cleans everything. I had no clue what it was till I grabbed a busted bottle to clean the bathroom one day. 3. You get real used to pasta and rice also. They are cheap and can be bought in bunches. 4. Every buy 2 sandwiches from Subway cause a third is free. Coupons like this go a long way. My last thing I noticed, and this is pretty bad. The dollar store's toilet paper is seriously better than the toilet paper my mom buys. Fabuloso is definitely a Hispanic thing. Target only sells all its varieties in markets with a large Hispanic population. Sacrificing my plate of food to feed my little brother and 3 little sisters whilst my mom gave up her food, as did I. I was 10. All while my obese abusive stepdad ate steak and Brussels sprouts, lest mom got beat. Luckily, he is dead. Mom's somewhat stable, and I'm 17. Saving up money right now, but that's one thing I fear being. I don't want to be hungry or unable to provide. I just remember telling my mom that I'm hungry, her breaking down and crying. Luckily, I had a best friend that I used to go to and bring leftovers from across the street back over. My mom used to take me to the shopping mall to look for new school clothes. I'd point out 5 outfits I like, 1 for each school day, and then we'd leave to go to the fabric store where she'd buy remnants in similar colors, styles, and then sew outfits that look just like the things I pointed out in the store. Maybe it was my young eyes, but I honestly thought they looked just like what was in the store, minus the label. This was the 80s. Labels were big and prominent. Mean kids who wore the name brand stuff immediately picked on me for having fake or wannabe clothes. But I never told my mom because I knew she did her best for me, and even at a young age I felt like I shouldn't be a burden. For the longest time, we would make cheap but crock-pot meals and eat off that for a week. We would take our extra money, as kids did side jobs and stuff, and buy all kinds of meats and potatoes, vegetables, and just mix it all up to make a badass crock-pot meal. We'd do 3 at a time and it would last us 7 days. That living in a semi-rural community means that doing chores for old farmers means they let you walk through their fields to dig your own turnips, cut your own mustard greens. That turnip greens are awesome with the juice from leftover pickled peppers. You can plant and grow more squash, zucchini, and cucumbers than you can eat if you shovel the neighborhood horse stalls for fertilizer. Government cheese and peanut butter can be stretched and modified. The ladies at church will help if you ignore the gossip and backhanded remarks. That the stove in a 3-room house can be used to cook and heat. And I too figured it out way too early that I already ate was a pleasantry to make me and my brother feel better. Beans, rice, and butcher leavings can go a long way. Those are the main things we had to buy. Everything else was bartered for. Charity of the church and commodities. Learning to hunt was essential. We lived on the edge of Champion Paper Company land. They let us hunt. Squirrel and rabbit go a long way towards adding some income and meat. I could keep us in milk by taking the skins to the local processor along with rattlesnakes. Also, there are cheaper places than Goodwill, if you know where to look. Garage sales, dumpsters, if you know what to look for. I still cannot stand the smell of mildewed cloth without having an anxiety attack. Same for rotting chicken. The things our parents, or in my case, grandmother, will do to feed us. If you don't have a job, even if you have money in the bank, utilities will do their best to deny you service. Once, when I was in between jobs, I moved to a cheaper apartment and was calling to switch the power over. The woman on the other end When I said I was currently without a job, paused, and then said, "Oh, you mean you're self-employed?" and then explained that were I actually unemployed, she would not be able to turn on my power. Of course, I agreed with her assessment of my situation. OMG, that lady had empathy for you and totally did you a solid there. What a good person. Plus she was smart enough to not get caught and lose her gig. Many poor people buy a lot of eggs. Eggs are one of the cheapest and best tasting sources of protein. Enough for 6 meals costs less than $2. Many poorer people around where I live eat a lot of venison. If you have the time to go stand in the woods during deer season, you can get yourself 70 or 80 pounds of meat really cheaply, especially if you do your own butchering. My wife won't eat venison. When she was young and poor and first starting out years ago, that was the only meat they had to feed the family for several years, and she doesn't ever want to see it again. Grew up poor here. Here are some things I noticed. Growing up, we were never allowed to buy individual servings of things. I still feel guilty every time I buy my toddler individually packaged yogurts, cheese strings, etc. Fruit. Buying fruit was a special occasion. Underwear and socks at the thrift store. I don't think my parents bought these, but a lot of my lower income clients buy them. I used to think, wow, who buys underwear at a thrift store? Yup, some people don't really have any other choice. At least for Latinos, tortillas. Sometimes you wouldn't even have anything to put on them, but you could butter on them or salt and just eat them like that to fill up your stomach. Formula. I once saw my neighbor feed her infant child with rice water because they couldn't afford formula. Bulk beans. I live in Utah and my brother-in-law recently bought 10-gallon drum of dry beans from the Mormon community store. He's not even poor, he just said he saw it. Remembered his mom used to buy those growing up and then couldn't resist. Dollar store toys. Our Christmas was always dollar store growing up. If you haven't ever seen those toys, they are the cheapest of the cheap. Fake Barbies that reek of overprocessed plastic and break after a week. Great question. I'm poor right now and have a 3-year-old daughter and a loving wife. I try to stay as frugal as possible, and my wife is even better. Twice a week she goes to the food pantry to get a whole bunch of stuff. Anything we don't use we donate. After coming back she'll spend around $30-40 on vegetables and meats per week. And she can make it last. She grew up in Mexico with very little money and always had to feed 5-6 people on $30 a week. Best enchiladas I've ever had. I'll go ahead and put my answer. Cheap meat. You don't know how bad Spam and Vienna weenies taste till you have them for breakfast, lunch, afternoon snack, and dinner. I wouldn't want it all the time, but I like Spam and Vienna sausages. Not buying but stealing rolls of toilet paper from public restrooms and stocking up on paper towels from the same place. This was all in undergrad. My roommate and I would also shower at the university gym, so free memberships to keep our water bill down. Probably get buried, but it wasn't so much buying weird things, but paying for things with loose change. As a kid we would be so broke we would have to look everywhere for change, using every single penny for gas, food or whatever. It was always so humiliating to pay for something all in change. Walking to the cashier and paying for a loaf of bread and lunch meat with nickel, dimes and pennies. I remember riding in another adult's car and seeing their center console full with loose change. I thought they had to have been so rich. I thought that if I could have that much change just sitting there when I was older, everything would be alright. Can I just say, Starbucks throws out individually wrapped sandwiches and whatnot. You'd have to live near one and dig through some truly foul trash, but it'll be good and clean. I just learned this from a teenage burglar a couple years ago. Baseball caps with a completely straight brim and the sticker still on it were made popular because inner city kids wanted to prove they could afford brand new name brand things. It's kind of sad that's how some trends start. I was a burglary detective at the time. The kid was 18 at the time. He was stealing to buy shoes. We found over 20 new pairs when we searched his apartment. Poverty made this person what he was. I was sad to see it. He did 2 years in jail. Then he got out and started back up again doing the same thing. Now he's going back. I'm imagining this kid breaking into your house, and you make him a cup of cocoa and ask for his life story. Growing up, my mother would work 2-3+ jobs to support my sister and I. When we first moved back to Missouri from Las Vegas to be closer to family so they could help us, since my mom was broke, they decided they didn't want to after all. We lived in a Fairfield Inn for the first year of moving back to Missouri. We couldn't afford anything else, and it wasn't all that cheap. It was great because we had a free breakfast, which we stocked up on, and an indoor swimming pool. For lunch I would take a piece of bread with honey on it. I loved it. It never occurred to me I was eating it because we couldn't afford anything else. I adored them. Once a week, we would get a special treat. We would go to Shoney's. Kids ate the salad bar for free, so we would go there and my mom would sit and watch us gorge ourselves, my sister on veggies and good things. Myself, I would get gigantic piles of pepperonis and eat them. My mom would say she wasn't hungry, so she would sit and had this amazing smile on her face, knowing how happy my sister and I were getting to eat as much as we could. By the time I started school, kids would look at my lunch, teachers as well, and ask me why I had only a piece of bread and honey. I would say because it is what I wanted for lunch. I never really had toys or things I asked for, because I never really cared to have them. My childhood was extremely poor, but my sister and mother made it so rich to me that I never realized it. My mom is the strongest person I know. She worked herself into physical disability to give my sister and I a house growing up. An actual house. It was the most amazing thing to me. She got better jobs, working at hospitals, etc. Finally getting a managing position at Procter & Gamble. With that, she got us things we never even knew about. She said it was making up for lost Christmases and past birthdays. We didn't care. We loved just having a place to call home and food for our table. I still look back and think to myself, those honey sandwiches, the motel we grew up in, it was some of the best memories I have of my home. Being poor monetarily is nothing compared to being rich in family. Thankfully, I'm not poor and always had help when I was in a pinch. But my mom and dad, not so much. My dad was one of 9 kids of a sharecropper. 2 died from diphtheria. Google it, before he was born. At age 3, he was picking cotton till his mother died at age 6. Then they were put in a home for poor kids, like an orphanage, but half the kids weren't orphans and not up for adoption. There were about 200 kids at the home. Before the fortune of ending up in a home until he was 17. This was his life. 2-bedroom house. Dirt floors. No water or electricity. He was the youngest boy, so he didn't ever have new shoes until he was in the home. All hand-me-downs. His mother made clothes from potato sacks. Seriously, imagine wearing a potato sack in the Texas summer heat while working in a cotton field at age 4. Blows my mind. All the food was what they killed or grew. He has stories about Gritty Possum. The year before he ended up in the home, there was a heavy snowfall, about 2 feet, which was deep in Texas at that time. His brother Mark saw some geese fly by and land in the field about 200 yards from the house. Mark was about 14 at the time. That kid grabbed his gun and crawled on his belly through that snow. They ate goose for dinner. I think it was around Christmas at the time. The crazy thing is, this seems bizarre to most folks. Crap. I'm 1 generation removed from this and it seems crazy, but it happened to my dad. I never ever forget what kind of mess he started in. And I will never vote for anyone that wants to hurt welfare, social services, or medical assistance. This is my first ever post on Reddit. I read about this on my Facebook wall and had to put in my 2 cents. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.